Hello everyone and welcome back to Timberborn. This is episode 13 on the Haunted Hollow series. In the last episode we made some good progress on our reservoir over here. We have most of the levees and the overhangs laid out so that we can finish constructing it. As long as we add a path in, then we should be able to reach most of it. And as day 20 of cycle 14 wraps up, that means our drought is also wrapping up. And this couldn't come at a better time because we are actually running a little bit short on water now. We have just under 500. So right off the bat, I'm going to unpause all these water pumps, and hopefully we can get close to maxing out our water at 6,000. Although we have added a few beavers in the last few episodes, so I'll need to keep an eye on that during today's episode. And it looks like we actually switched a lot of these jobs to bots. So now we have 17 unemployed bots, but we need to switch that. And I think that's actually because I used the copy settings tool. So these originally were beavers, but now I switched them all to bots and unintentionally. We are also in the midst of a wood shortage. We only have 16 logs at the moment. We do have some trees up here that we can chop down. We were not able to collect them earlier because all these lumberjack flags were actually maxed out on wood in the actual lumberjack flags. But now we have a couple of these industrial piles that should be able to fit some of the logs and make this whole process go a little bit quicker. It looks like we are also running a little bit low on power since these gravity batteries went all the way down. But now with the water and the bad water returning, that should help power all these up since we have these water wheels underneath. And unfortunately, these large water wheels do take a bit of logs, so I don't think we can add any of those in quite yet. We'll need to wait till our wood stores get back a little bit. We can always pause some of these lumber mills since we're doing pretty good on planks and we don't want to go through our wood stores or what's left of them at the moment. And there was a recent update to Timberborn. One thing that I'm most looking forward to is now that you can actually zoom out way farther than you could before, which for me is going to be very helpful for thumbnails, and also in some of the larger maps when you have some large structures, being able to actually see on top of them might be a little bit easier now. And we have a little bit of flooding going on over here. Hopefully that should subside fairly quickly. And then we also have a bunch of trees that we added over here. We just need to make sure that we have all of this area marked for planting. And then I am seeing a little bit of flooding going on over here. We have this set to 0.9, which I think might be just a little bit too high. So let's go down to 0.8 for now. And probably going to be some temporary flooding over here as well. Although I think the problem might be that we only have one of these floodgates and we don't have multiple, since the water is basically being shoved through just a single tile wide. It looks like near our efficient mine we've actually run out of scrap metal to collect, so we can remove all these jobs since they are no longer necessary. And it looks like we're doing all right on scrap metal. We have about 100 at the moment, and then we have about half of that in terms of metal blocks. We are a little bit short on bots, and that is because I had two of these bot part factories set to limbs instead of having one set to chassis. So I switched them both to chassis for now to try and get a few extra of those stored up. And then once we have a small little buffer, we can unpause this second bot part assembler and then switch one of them back to limbs. And then we should be making bots fairly quickly at that point. But it'll probably take a few days before we get there. Looks like we're doing okay on food. We haven't really been going up. We have about 700 kohlrabi, which is the majority of our food stores. And then we have just under 200 fermented cassavas and then hardly any fermented soybeans. And then we do have some mushrooms, but we don't have enough hydroponic gardens to really feed the rest of the population, which means that we probably need to add a few more. And we have a lot of free space up here. So taking a look at the hydroponic gardens, I think that this should be feasible for us to make. So we can start by adding 3 of them right here. I think I'll add some more over on this side down the road. And then I'm going to set all of these to mushrooms since we already have the infrastructure to actually process these mushrooms into fermented mushrooms. And then since we have the tube station right here, they can hop in there and very quickly get to where we keep most of our water. But this will mean that we'll need to make sure we have enough water pumpers. We have these ones right now. I might start tapping into this area up here. The main downside is that they would have to be going into the tubes in order to put the water into storage. I could always try using one of these medium tanks and then having this set to supply. And then as long as we prioritize it by haulers, this might be a good solution. Having these extra hydroponic gardens should give us some more mushrooms that we can process. But I need to make sure we actually have enough storage for the raw mushrooms, because if we don't have any storage, once we hit the 45 mushrooms and they can't move them out of there, then we actually just completely stop this whole process of growing up new mushrooms. I think that we had some over here. We have fermented, and then we don't have any below. We have most of our storage over here, but it's kind of hard to navigate when we have so many items. It looks like we have 0 out of 400 in terms of mushrooms. Fermented mushrooms we have also 0 out of 400. And I think this right here is one of them. So we should have enough storage for at least some mushrooms. But we only have 200 fermented cassava storage spots, so it's probably worth finally getting the large warehouse unlocked. This was also meant to be a temporary large barracks. I don't want it to be here in the long run. I can always put some platforms right here and move it over to this area. I'm going to relocate that one to right here. We do have 12 vacant beds, so we're not short on beds at the moment. And it looks like the beavers have actually finished completing this reservoir. So now as long as we place down some of the impermeable flooring, then we should be able to fill this up. We'll need to be strategic in the order in which we place it, because if we place them over here first, the water will flow this way and then flow down into here, which could start flooding some of our crops, which is going to be a no-no. It takes 1 metal block, and we only have about 80 at the moment, so we'll need to make sure we don't actually run out of metal blocks. If we hop into our jobs list, we can see that we only have 2 smelters at the moment, and then our scrap metal is not going up yet, but we have 1 more bot than we did previously, and I think that he hopped into here. We're still doing alright on treated planks, and so if we want to move to the efficient recipe, that requires extract, which we are actually completely maxed out on, and this will give us double the scrap metal that we were getting before. And then if we do a couple more things, we should be able to make it easier for the beavers to collect it if we add in some storage in terms of the industrial pile. So if we have all of these buildings, these ones set to supply the bots in the mine, and then these 2 buildings will be so they can offload their resources much easier. And it looks like we have some builders who are sitting around, so we're going to end up pausing some of these jobs. And we're on day 7, we're only up about 1500 water, so it's not as much as I was hoping for. But I just set this water tank so that it is now set to water. Hopefully that should help these guys move a little bit faster. And they made all this impermeable flowing very quickly. We can start working our way from the front side now. And if you haven't already, be sure to check out some of the live streams that I've been doing on Saturday mornings. Lots of you guys have been showing up, and everyone who I've interacted with so far has enjoyed themselves. You'll get the opportunity to talk with me and other fellow Timberborn fans. And I recently started a new live stream series on one of Timberborn's newest maps, which this one is going to be one of the most difficult ones that I've done yet. So if you have some free time, be sure to check it out. And if you can't make it live, be sure to check out my channel where I have the live streams uploaded. And it seems these storages are paying off handsomely. We have both of these pretty much maxed out. And now we're up to over 1,000 wood, which is fantastic. Food is starting to go up a little bit. I think the next thing we need to focus on is metal blocks. We're going to switch at least one of these guys to be a bot. We do need to bump that up in the priority list. We might not have enough lumberjack flags over here. We have one of them that is normal. This one's lower. We actually have a few trees that they need to chop down. We can probably relocate some of these beavers since they have chopped down most of the trees over here, and now we're really just waiting on these to grow up. And now that we actually have some wood stored up, let's get some more of these large water wheels added, because we're pretty much even in terms of how much power we're producing and using. So these gravity batteries are not really charging up during the daytime at all. And if we can turn off some of these engines, that will be very beneficial for getting our wood even higher. It's going to take a little bit of finessing in order to fit some water wheels in here. It's kind of a funky shape since it's going diagonal. And we're not going to stop at just adding in a couple more water wheels. We're going to try and go as far around this way as we can. And then we're also going to start looking at some other sources for adding in some more water wheels. Right down here is a place that we could go. As long as we get some power shafts going up vertically, then we could pretty easily connect into this system up here. We are going to actually need to remove this stream gauge. Maybe we can relocate it somewhere down here, although it's not really essential since we know what the contamination levels get to, and that was really the main reason I added it in. And we can go all the way up, and then we should be able to connect our power shafts in fairly easily. We just need to make sure that we can go across and connect it in right here. And right now this seems like one of the easier power sources for me to access other than using engines. But is there something else that I'm missing? I know we have this bad water river that goes along here, and then we have our main river. But that one I think would be a little bit more difficult to harness the power from since we have so many buildings around here already. We are slowly going up in metal blocks, not by a whole lot, but I'll continue to place down the impermeable flooring. In the meantime, I think it's worth adding in at least one more smelter right here. And then right off the bat we can prioritize it by haulers and have it set to bots. And then we should also prioritize it in terms of the building construction. At this point I want to get as many bots as we can, so we're going to unpause the second bot assembler. And then since they just finished constructing this chassis, we can switch this back to limbs. We have a good amount of extra limbs, but since it's a 4-to-1 ratio in terms of limbs to heads and chassis, we're actually in a pretty good spot. All these mushrooms are almost done growing up, and that's going to be very helpful since we're not really doing great in terms of mushrooms for food. Overall food's up just a little bit, but not enough worth celebrating. So those additional mushrooms will be one piece of the puzzle. We can probably also look at getting some more food planted over here since we have a good amount of irrigated space. And now we have corn and eggplants that we can plant. These two are both going to require the food processor, but these also take 10 and 12 days in order to actually fully grow up, and that's after they plant them. So we'll have some time to get those food processors set up in the meantime. And I misspoke, it's the food factory, not the food processor. But we can get one set up here, although I don't think that it actually will connect in if we have it offset. If we go directly up from right here, and instead of having an overhang, maybe we can make that work. It looks like it's saying this one will connect in, so we can place the first one down, then we get the second one placed down as well, and then we'll make sure we have them set to the appropriate recipes. And we have a drought approaching in 3 days. We also managed to plant down a bunch of trees over here, so we're going to have to wait quite a while for them to all grow up, but this will help us prevent any more wood shortages from happening. Thankfully, we're in a good spot with 1.3 thousand wood, and for the most part, it seems like everything is going up in terms of our resources. We're pretty steady in terms of treated planks, so we might need to look at expanding our production area up top. We have all these overhangs, and I think we're going to actually continue expanding in this direction. Since we do have the tube station that ends right here, we can easily add in a few tubes and then have another tube station somewhere over here as well. And we have both of these water wheels up and running. We're just connecting in the last few pieces of the power shafts right here, and then as soon as that's all set, then we'll be able to attach it to the entire production system, which will be very helpful. I also started the process of expanding some more storage over here and then also getting some overhangs, and then we can start out by getting some wood workshop set up and then maybe even another smelter. And unfortunately the geometry works so that we can have a food processor right here. This will be algae rations, but I can't get the 4 deep buildings placed right here until we actually have the rest of this set up, since the beavers are accessing this area from right behind and underneath where our gravity batteries are. So they also changed it. If you hold Alt and then just move your mouse, you can actually change the level that you're looking at. You can still do it with the scrolling wheel, but you could theoretically kind of cancel it out if you go in opposite directions, assuming you use both the wheel and moving the mouse at the same time. We're starting to get some bots that are unemployed. I just tossed one of them into this water pump, but I think we need to get a hauling post set up right here that is specifically set for bots. And then we can make this job our overflow for the bots, bump it all the way up to 10, and then make sure it's set to lowest priority. And the drought has started. It is 8 days long. I'm going to need to pause at least some of these water pumpers since we don't want to dry this area out and then start removing the irrigation source for all of these crops. And then let's do the same down here as well. And now we have a lot of beavers who need a job. Let's see if we can find something for them to do. We can shove a couple of them into the industrial lumber mill. As soon as we can get this tubeway station constructed, then we can remove these paths. And then we'll be able to add in some of the smelters and the wood workshops over here. So we can toss the last couple beavers in those jobs. And then we actually have this food factory that is just now finished up. But we actually haven't even planted any algae yet. So that's another job that we can add over here. If we add in 3 more of these hydroponic gardens, it'll take a bit more water, so we'll need to keep an eye on that once again. In fact, we can actually add a second set of them right over here. As long as you place down one more platform and path, then we'll have 6 of these hydroponic gardens producing algae. And at this point, it seems we don't have enough builders to get all these projects constructed. So let's add some more builders huts over here. We'll make sure we high prioritize it, and that should help some of the construction projects get sped up. And it looks like our gravity batteries are starting to get depleted, so maybe it's worth adding in a few more of them somewhere over here. We can continue expanding the trench along this direction. Means we'll need to remove a few of these trees and then some of these overhangs. And now we are super close to getting all of the impermeable flooring placed down. We can definitely get this all sorted out before the next wet season appears, since we have 6.4 days until that happens. And despite all the projects that we've been working on, our metal blocks have not been going down. We're still hovering right around 60. Our scrap metal is actually way up. We're almost at 500 now. And And then it looks like water got up to just over 3,500. Food's above 2,000 now, which is excellent news. We're actually burning through extract fairly quickly. We're down to 180. We still have some bad water that we stored up from the last wet season. But since we're using extract in the efficient mine now, we got to be careful about that. We don't want that to start running out because then we completely lose access to scrap metal. And then as long as we place down a power shaft that actually connects this whole system together, since power does transfer through these tubeway stations, and then we can always add in a centrifuge on the backside here. We have room for another 3x3 building, and then we can also connect this area in right over here as long as we add in this overhang and then a set of stairs. And down the road, what I do want to do is have this tube station connect over into these ones. But I think what I want to do is actually get some overhangs set up right over here in terms of the dirt blocks. And then we can have the tubes go across underground, and then we'll go out and then connect in right here. That way the beavers don't have to either choose between walking over this direction or going down and then all the way around and up here. Looks like we flip-flopped a little bit. We are almost maxed out in terms of the jobs for the bots. And then now we have 9 vacant jobs for the beavers. That's a pretty easy switch. We can always just switch one of these builders' huts from beavers to bots. Although I did switch one of the gear workshops, so we're going to switch this back. And then let's put another bot back in here. And then maybe get ready to add in another gear workshop somewhere in our new production area. And we have so many projects going on. It looks like the beavers, if we go way down here, they did finish placing down the impermeable flooring. But then we still have a fair amount of the overhangs and some of these buildings that we're working on constructing. And then we also have these new gravity batteries that we're working on. But we are in a great spot getting ready for the next episode. Food is doing fantastic, and now we have 6 of these hydroponic gardens over here. And these are all going to be producing algae. And if you want to see our reservoir get filled up, make sure to check in the next episode. And we're going to finally get the big reveal and see if this whole system actually works as planned. If you enjoyed today's episode, please hit that like button. It really does mean a lot to me, and it helps the channel out tremendously. And with that, we will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.